Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Sawcruhteez Streamz, and I am your host, Sawcruhteez. Very exciting day that it's been so far in the crypto markets. Seen a couple big moves, one on the way up and then one on the way down, both in very short order and very significant moves indeed. I think the first was about 10%, and since then I think we've basically fully retraced that, which is definitely not a good sign for the bulls. So we will be jumping into some charts, looking at why there was an update that I shared with the Telegram group today, like I do every day with my full analysis. And in the conclusion, I mentioned why I'm still bearish. There were a few reasons why I was suspect of the pump in price that came even before it retraced, and we will outline those details and then take a look at where we think the price may be headed to next. We will also be taking a look at gold. It had a move recently itself, and it is at a important spot as well. So we'll be excited to go ahead and dive right into some charts and share my thoughts with everyone. So appreciate you all for tuning in. See some familiar names in the chat, so glad to see everybody here. And without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and jump right into some charts. So I did make a big change yesterday or the day before. Went over to the dark side using the dark theme on TradingView now, and that's something I like to change around every so often, every maybe 6 months or so. It's I don't know, something I just like doing, giving myself a new view of the charts. So we do have the dark mode pulled up, and I am liking the look of it. So the first thing, let's go ahead and throw on normal candles here. First thing that I have been keeping my eye on over the last couple days is this bear channel. Again, this was something that I've been posting in the daily updates on Telegram, so anybody who's been following along there did have these boundary lines drawn, or at least, you know, maybe keep an eye on it over the last couple days. Basically, once we got this lower low right here, I used that to go ahead and draw in a parallel channel that got retested a couple times, and the median held as resistance a couple of times. So back in here, it was definitely looking like a good chart pattern to have. And just got to notice that my mouse battery is low. Man, I sure hope that doesn't die. That would be a pain in the neck. So fingers are crossed. Yeah, so back in here, when we had multiple touch points of this lower boundary and multiple touch points of this median, it started to look like this channel was definitely taking shape, and that is one of the main patterns I have been keeping my eye on over the last week or so. And that is the first reason why I was kind of suspicious of that run-up, is because it failed to close above the top of this boundary. I think maybe like that is how I had it. It did get above for a brief time, but closed below. So that was the first thing I was kind of pointing to, saying, you know, definitely a time to wait for further confirmation and not get overexcited or over anxious or emotional about this quick run up that we did see, because it didn't even close above that top boundary line. In addition to that, we got a very bearish wick. After this candle closed, I was looking at this big long wick that, man, is almost as long as the body. Let's take a look at that. Longer than the body was that wick. So anytime you have a wick that is longer than the body, that's actually a reversal candle, as defined by just candlesticks and the candlestick charting methods. If you do get a wick above the price and the wick is longer than the body, that is defined as a reversal candle, kind of like a shooting star. You don't expect a shooting star to have this big of a body, but the fact still remains that the wick is longer than the body, and therefore that is not a bullish candle. So those were the two main reasons why I was suspicious of this run-up. And there's one final reason that I was keeping my eye on that I think we've gotten our answer, but we will have to wait for the daily close, as there has been a very important trend line on the daily that I've been watching. And there we go. Come on. Okay. So this is a trend line on the daily chart that I've been keeping my eye on. Was watching it very closely in this action, noticing that it found resistance on that run up from like 65 to like 78 or so. I think I had it like that so that it connected to that right there, and it got really close to closing above on this candle, failed to do so. And then on this one, after that 4-hour close, the daily also was back down below this trend line already. So that was another reason why I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to be paying close attention to the daily close to see if it is able to close above this trend line. That alongside the parallel channel on the 4-hour were the two most important boundary levels for me. And then there were a couple more that we will cover here just in a second. So now it looks like this daily candle just looks terrible. I mean, that is really bad, with the wick being much bigger than the body, and this being much more of a traditional bearish candle, due to you have the wick that is significantly longer than the body, and the body is now red. So that is definitely a very bearish candle. So then I also talked about today in my update, where would I start to consider being wrong, or that to start at least changing my tune in terms of either becoming neutral or bullish. And here was another very important area for me, is this horizontal level at 7,800. Been keeping my eye on two important levels of horizontal resistance. One was 74, the second was 78, and saw a lot of resistance from 78 up to about 81 or so. One of the things that I was keeping my eye on was the Kijun on the daily Ichimoku cloud. It is something that is referred to often as a Kijun bounce, or potentially Kijun rejection if it's bearish, where when you're in a trend and you're moving, you look for that Kijun as an area to provide, if it's bullish, a bounce to the upside, and if it's bearish, rejection to the downside. So that was definitely an important area for me. Price got very close to it and failed to test it. Often you'll see this exact action where it comes up and like perfectly kisses the Kijun. Almost happened here. Might be kind of hard to see on this darker chart, but right here is where it is, and we missed it by a few dollars, it looks like. So that was, we had horizontal resistance, we had resistance from the Kijun, and we also had some resistance from the 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart. That was another area where often on these runs it'll come right up to it and kind of kiss it before finding resistance and reacting sharply away from it. Again, we got very close but didn't, so definitely indicates maybe some front running of sellers, where people were viewing the Kijun and the 200 EMA as resistance and wanting to get positioned, either exit longs or enter shorts. And instead of waiting for it to get all the way up there, they were stacking bids a little lower to make sure that they got filled, is kind of what my read would be, seeing how close we got to both of those very important boundaries and pulled up just shy. So that's where I was really expecting a lot of resistance, was in this area. And for me to start really changing my tune to either neutral, I would have become neutral if we did get back above this area. Basically, this 200 EMA, if price did get back above there, now I'm becoming neutral and would be waiting for a crossover with the 50 before thinking about turning back bullish. So have been definitely bearish for a while, and this move did not change anything. It had me sitting up in my seat and paying close attention and making sure to understand where the tides could start shifting, and for me that was above 8,000. Due to that confluence of resistance that we see from horizontal 200 EMA and daily Kijun Sen, and we didn't get there. And furthermore, something to pay close attention, it may not jump out, but this is in fact a lower high. We didn't quite get up to this high here, meaning that resistance has moved down, even though it's ever so slightly. These are things that are important to me. If this would have broken through this threshold, that would have been a signal of strength. That would have been a sign that the supply is getting eaten away at, opposed to when it comes up a little short, that tells you that the supply is holding strong and even moving down a little bit. So that is definitely very significant that this failed to get to the Kijun or the 200 EMA, and I am inclined to think that that occurred due to the horizontal established from the recent swing high. Okay. So that is covering pretty much what I wanted to cover on Bitcoin. Things are not looking good. The fact that we fully retraced that move in very short order is quite bearish. You get a massive big pump in a short time and you fail to sustain it. Basically, my next key level after this happened was 7,400. That's what I was looking at when we were right in here. I was saying that, man, if we can turn 74 into support, then that would be very strong, and it would likely lead to a golden cross with the 50 and 200 EMAs on the 1 hour. If we were able to support up in here at 74, it would be turning prior resistance into support. We have been resisting here at 74 for a while, so if it was able to turn that into support and stay above that 200 EMA, that was going to lead to a golden cross, and that would have been a strong sign to me that we are going to go up and retest the probably 8,000 to 8,100 area, but that didn't happen. Instead, we retraced pretty darn quickly. So now what I'm keeping my eye on, when markets are moving fast, I like to zoom in. It can be hard to tell too much on higher time frames when the markets are really moving, and one of my favorite tools for that is the TD sequential. Notice how we did get a 9 up here, not at the top, but basically at exhaustion. It kept moving down after this 9 occurred, and now we have a 8 that is getting ready to close. So we'll be opening a 9 here pretty soon. We are below this setup trend line, but not by much. And it looks like we are supporting the previous one right there. So a couple things that I'm seeing here is that looks like a death cross is going to be coming in on the 15-minute, which would lead me to believe lower prices are on the horizon. And being that we're on an 8, it would make a lot of sense to pull up and into a death cross like so, and then I would use this as kind of like a swing target, how far we moved on that last move, to give me an idea of what might happen on the following move. And did I do that right? No, I didn't. Let's do that. And is it going to let me zoom out enough? So this is what makes most sense to me. Is that we basically continue on with this channel. From here, a little pull up and into a death cross, something like this, and then followed by another leg down to revisit the 6,900 level, which would be the bottom of this channel, and it would also be horizontal support. So and furthermore, if we do pull up and into a death cross, it would also be at an area of horizontal resistance, again around the 7356 to 7400 area. That looks like a pretty attractive sell zone to me. Right in there. Yeah, I'll just have to do. So yeah, that's basically what I'm expecting here, maybe over the next 24 hours or so. And yeah, I think that pretty much explains it. Parallel channel, incoming death cross, horizontal support. Makes a lot of sense for it to go ahead and kind of continue following this path. Something like that. So that's what I'm going to be watching for. Another possibility that would be maybe a little bit more on the bearish side would be developing and head and shoulders. If we don't bounce from here and instead we just kind of do this, that would give us a big head and shoulders with the shoulder, head, shoulder. And I think this specific head and shoulders would be labeled a Bart pattern due to this action in here. Almost more like a Marge with her big long hair than Bart, but definitely something that we have grown accustomed to in crypto. If we do get this, I would hesitate to use the top of that wick as the way to measure a move. I'd instead kind of use the consolidation area. And like I said, that would be a more bearish way to proceed. And it would also give us a lower target. And again, if this type of thing ends up happening right in here, then it would indicate that we're going to break down the bottom of this channel. And as mentioned before, if you break down the bottom of bear channels, it suggests that you're going to accelerate at a faster pace than the previous channel was moving. So here's the pace that the channel is currently moving along like this. And if we do break it down something like this, then it would probably start to move more like this, just a steeper angle, faster pace. Okay, and I'm getting pretty quick. It's amazing. I'm doing less shows and getting through my analysis quicker, so that's nice. Only 20 minutes in and have covered everything and then a little bit more that I wanted to on BTC. I'll take a quick look at the chat and then we will move on into gold. Okay. Check out the 3-day 200 MA. That's something I actually have been paying attention to. Not the simple MA, but the EMA. So I'm just going to leave that on and take a look. That it has been trying to find support around this area. This is something I'm definitely paying attention to over the last week or two. Seeing price testing the 200 EMA with the 50 significantly spread out above indicates that this should be a strong area of support. And this would be a definitely important level of resistance if we do find support from here. I mentioned 8 to 82 being my key levels. I would probably be even more conservative and say around 86 due to horizontal and 50 EMA on the 3-day. Generally, when you find support at an area like this, it will then find resistance at the 200. At the 50. When it finds support at the 200 with the big spread, it'll generally find resistance at the 50, at least temporarily. So that's definitely an area that I will be keeping an eye on. While we have this chart pulled up, we'll just show the higher time frame channel that I've been paying close attention to. It has been the most important market structure for a few months now. This was the main reason why we were expecting a bounce from down around here, the inverse head and shoulders, and at the bottom of the channel. Covered that in previous videos. So it's interesting that this recent move didn't get up to test the median of that channel. I sure would have expected it to, and it's kind of bearish that it didn't. Something else to keep an eye on is potentially, I was going to say potentially a Williams fractal, but this disqualifies it. Still does look like it's rolling over though, with a high between lower highs. Okay. Ricky Thompson says Bitcoin has been in a downtrend since June 26, 2019. To change trend for bullish, volume, MA need to change. I completely agree. Definitely, that is my perspective for sure. When the market has moved in a certain direction for a while, you need to let the other side prove it to you. Like, we've been bearish here for months, and when we get these pumps, they have just been basically selling opportunities, and they have quickly retraced these big pumps. So when you're in this bearish trend, you absolutely got to make the bulls prove to you that a reversal is in, whether that be from moving average crossovers or something else. What I definitely use is, more than anything else, is the moving average crossovers. So I agree. As long as we're in this channel with bearish moving averages, it's a bear trend. Simple as that for me. How's it going, Fibbo Swanee? Good to see you. We are in a falling wedge on a daily basis since June. I did think that, but I have changed my outlook because I do believe it is best suited as a parallel channel. For a falling wedge, you can't have these parallel lines. You need it to be like, more of a wedge. It needs to do like this. A falling wedge needs to have the best fit lines as coming to an apex towards the end, whereas this right here is clearly the best fit line for me. It time and time again has held up as support, and it's following the same trend. It's not coming to an apex. These are parallel lines, and I was looking at a potential falling wedge there for a little bit, but I definitely am a strong believer that the bear channel is the best fit pattern opposed to a falling wedge. Hello, Growth Punk. All is well. Hope everything's good with you too. Would you count the wick or the close as a higher high? A wick I would count, but a close I would count more. If you wick high higher than the previous swing high but close below it, I still view that as a higher high. It still shows the price punched through that area of resistance and discovered higher prices than it did on the last rally. And if it closes above, that's much better, but even if it wicks above, I still do believe that that is a higher high. And I did just say that I don't agree with the falling wedge interpretation, but forgot to mention that you could definitely be viewing this as a broadening bottom. Everything's there for that. So something that I've definitely been keeping my eye on is a pretty textbook broadening bottom. A Selgin buy was signaled right in here, and it might have just been stopped out. I would have to check. It looks like it would have been. So definitely forming a broadening bottom pattern. So we'll see if that can again get above that like 83-ish area right in here. Then I definitely would start to be pretty darn compelled by a return to the top of this megaphone broadening bottom pattern. So that's the one bullish outlook for you guys. All right. Let's see. Great point, JKD. Not about being right or wrong, it's about making money. Couldn't agree more. That's just a beautiful quote that probably should talk about more often. The best traders make money even when they're wrong. So keep that in mind, and that's something that's very important to understand. If you can be wrong and still make money, then you are going to be doing very, very well for yourself, especially when you're right. Whereas there's a lot of people, especially novice traders, a lot of people on Twitter or whatever, they'll be right and they will not make any money, or they'll be not have actually made a trade. Sometimes they'll post a chart that turns out being right and they make no money. Or there are other times where they will post a chart and they'll botch the trade, exiting too early or adding too much on too late, or getting chopped around after capturing a move. So the bad traders generally lose money even when they're right, and the good traders make money even when they're wrong. So that's something that's very, very important to understand, and I guess something that I'm definitely not always fitting in that category, but this may be a good example. I am expecting prices to return to the mid sixes, mid to low sixes. And if I'm wrong, I'm still probably going to make money thanks to MSR and the way the signals that I use to trade. So I did open a short up in here, and I've been holding on to this. I did trim a little bit right here, and I'm expecting to cover the majority of it down in here. If that doesn't happen and I do end up having to exit kind of up in here, well, I'm still going to make some money, unless there's like a candle that goes from like 8K to 10K while I'm sleeping or something. But highly probable that even if I'm wrong and this was the bottom and we just go up from here, that I'll still be making money on my position. And that's something that's very important. Is it really doesn't matter if you're right or if you're wrong. What matters is if you're able to make some money. Okay, so move on to gold. Just leave it there. So, I've been definitely paying attention to gold, and it's looking quite a bit like Bitcoin, to be honest, like a few months ago. Let's take a look at what's happening right now. It is throwing back to retest prior support for resistance, just like so. After breaking down, this isn't really, I don't know if you can really call this a descending triangle. The point's basically there. You get lower highs, horizontal support, but it's not the cleanest. If you connect it to here, it doesn't, like maybe that was more of a descending triangle, then a fake breakout. Then you've also got this fake breakdown here. So the point's kind of there. Every time it bounced, it got lower highs and then flat support. So it kind of is a descending triangle, but I wouldn't really label that such in real time. Just kind of looking back at what happened with Bitcoin, and it's very similar what happened with gold. Let's take a look at just a few things. I wonder if they all kind of add up. So first thing that happened was we broke this weekly SAR after a nice run-up, and next thing that happens is a death cross with the EMAs and some chop. Death cross, golden cross, death cross, golden cross, death cross, and then a breakdown of horizontal support. Let's take a quick look at the cloud. And now it has turned bearish as well. So definitely a similar kind of three steps that we saw with Bitcoin. That again, those are three reasons why it turned bearish. We break the SAR. Get some moving average crossovers that were choppy for a little bit. Break that down. And had the daily cloud turn bearish. And then got a big rally, but it was nothing but a throwback to retest prior resistance for support. Definitely a lot of similarities I'm seeing between gold and Bitcoin, with gold potentially lagging by a few months maybe. Okay, let's just take a look at the weekly cloud while we got that up. Still a ways away. I mentioned key June resistance on Bitcoin on the daily. Key June bounce for gold would be in the works if we can retest that. So what is very intriguing is a potential bull flag pattern. I am very intrigued by that. And if we can confirm it, I'll probably be buying it. Let's see. And that is very closely in line with where my target for the next move is, which is 1800. So I do think that gold is in a very interesting spot, but I am thinking it's definitely too early to do anything about it. something that it would be interesting is like a potential Elliott wave. Something like this. This looks pretty nice to me. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, but we don't know where 4 is going to end. Maybe it already has. Maybe it's going to come down to like here. But it does look like we are having plenty of room for another leg to the upside. The reason why I'm not overexcited is that I am looking for this thing to return to this trend line. And just like I'm really wanting to buy Bitcoin around 63 or so, I'm really wanting to buy gold around 1375 to 1400-ish. And throughout this time, I have been expecting us to return back into this area. And this is where I'm really interested in building a position. As it stands right now, I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on basically, we'll say 1507. If we can confirm that to the upside, I do think it would be ready for another leg up. So what else I'm looking at is that when you zoom in, that bull flag kind of becomes a channel. And that's something I'll be watching. So there are a couple trend lines. We are at trend resistance. It's kind of tricky here to find the best fit line, and in that situation I will often draw multiple trend lines. So something like that. This would be my zone of trend resistance. And we'll be watching the EMAs as price is now back above the 200, and it looks like it's posturing for a golden cross. If that happens, one of my favorite entries is trendline breakthroughs with moving average crossovers. So if we kind of get this golden cross here and do something like this, then I would be viewing that as a low risk opportunity to go ahead and long. So we'd have trendline breakthroughs, moving average crossovers, and if I was wrong, I would be getting out, you know, in pretty short order. If I was right, there's a lot of room to the upside. So definitely, I would say I'm leaning bearish, but I am kind of neutral. Basically, by the way that I determine trends, this is bearish. And if we're able to break these trend lines and get a golden cross, now I'm going to be definitely leaning bullish. Whereas if we do retrace here, if we resist these trend lines and fail to get a golden cross, then I'm going to be expecting a return to this trend line right in here. So time to pay close attention to gold. If it can get above 1495, then that's going to start to really be looking rather bullish. Whereas if it resists in here and comes back down to below like 1460, that's going to be a pretty good sign that we're going to get another local low and probably continue moving back to this trend line here. So that's everything I've got. I'm very happy my mouse battery hasn't died. I will take one last look at the chat and then call it a day. Okay. All right. Yeah, appreciate everybody for chiming in, providing their input and feedback. I do believe that that is everything that I've got for you today. We'll just take a second to mention the MSR indicator, which is available at Sawcruhteez.com. And that is the indicator that I use to pull up the buy and sell signals, which signal my entries and exits, whether that be a profit take or a stop loss. Full description is here, and some charts, some back testing is included. Some really good results that we see. I've already had some people in the Telegram group sharing some trades that have been moving in their favor, so that is great to see. Also have had some people using on lower time frames. I only use it on the 4-hour and use it to position trade. And that's why it was developed and what I believe it works best for. But there are people such as Joe Saz, who has been using it on the 15-minute chart and finding some success, tweaking with some potential trailing stop losses to be added to it. And we've been doing some back testing, so it does look like there are some shorter time frames that this can be used to beat the market successfully. I haven't used it on lower time frames, but for those of you that are interested, go over to the back testing tool. Let's see here. If you go to my profile, search people, Sawcruhteez, and push enter. You can come over and check out the scripts for the strategy tester, which you can use to backtest various markets and various time frames to see which time frames this is outperforming the markets on and which markets it is doing best. So it's great to see a lot of good feedback so far. Like almost 20% of the people that have viewed it have liked it. Also getting some good feedback on the MSR indicator itself, getting a good amount of likes and comments. That's always really great to see, and I appreciate everybody who has taken the time to check that out and provide any feedback. At the bottom of my website is instructions for how to buy, and this does come with an invitation to the Telegram chat group as well. So, okay. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to share my thoughts with you guys today after some nice volatility has occurred. I'm so curious. Just before logging off, I want to see what's happening with that 15-minute chart, if that did find a 9 and do anything off of it. So might as well just check real quick before signing off. Yeah, starting to look good, or at least ready for a bounce. Didn't quite get the 9, but did get an 8 with some reversal candles, and now it is trying to make a move, and we'll be keeping my eye on that 73.50, 73.10 to 74 as an area that I would expect to turn into resistance and then make another leg down from there. So something I'll be paying close attention to. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in, for liking and commenting and sharing with anybody who you feel may find some value in the analysis that I provide. It's much appreciated, the support that you guys have shown. So I will go ahead and call it a day, and we'll plan on catching up with you guys soon.